Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. This week I talk with Michelle Horovitz, social entrepreneur and the co-owner of Forma, the new community clay space in Minneapolis. We talk about how this new space got up and running, finding a creative outlet, and an update on appetite for change on this week's Who the Folk podcast. But before we hear from Michelle, programming is supported by Temple Israel, inspiring Jewish wisdom to help improve an ever-changing world. Register your children for the upcoming religious school year or find out more information about their early childhood center, membership information, and more at templeisrael.com/learn-more. And be sure to check out the refreshed TC Jewfolk merch store with newly designed stickers, shirts, hats, and tote bags that help support our mission and help you look fun and stylish. Check it out at tcjewfolk.com/store. Michelle Horovitz, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Lonnie. I'm so happy to be here.
So we are currently sitting right now in Forma, the new clay space that you are part owner of, part manager of, part both?
Part both.
So tell me...
Chief cook and bottle washer.
There you go. So I've gotten the tour now just before we started recording, but tell me a little bit about this space and the idea behind it and how it all came together, because it's really an incredible space that you've helped build here.
Thank you. Yeah, it is visually beautiful, and you just get a really good energy being here. And actually, it's the space that is the reason why we opened the studio. Jen, my business partner, and I had been ideating and talking and toying around with the idea for a couple of years. And we were not necessarily ready or like, okay, we have a business plan and we're looking for the right space. This space kind of came to us, and someone said, you have to see it. I think it's perfect for what you need. That's actually my best friend, Michael Hartman, who you should interview for Who the Folk. He brought us this space, and we just couldn't. We walked in and we're like, oh my gosh, this is our pottery studio. But it's a community clay room, and the idea is that we are creating an open and welcoming space for professional artists, ceramic curious folks, hobbyists, people who are just trying it out, and making a flexible space that people can come and create and be inspired. Clay became my hands-on creative expression after I made a career / being a mom and being immersed in food. Culinary arts used to be sort of my hands-on creative thing.
Yeah.
And I made a job out of it, and cooking as a short order cook at home. I needed to find a different hands-on.
The journey is obviously part of, your personal journey is part of what landed you here and why landed me here talking to you is the journey that brought this space together. And also, as an aside, I am well versed in being a short order cook at home.
Yeah.
And I get that.
It gets old.
It does. You've got a really fascinating background, though. So you mentioned food, and we'll talk about appetite for change in a little bit. But even before that, you were a lawyer. You are a lawyer. You have your JD. You worked as a public defender.
Yeah, I'm a recovering lawyer, I like to say. And I was also a line cook at a James Beard Award-winning kitchen in Miami, Florida for Michelle Bernstein, who has family roots here in St. Paul. And I was also side hustling, doing a little bit of catering for friends and family down in Miami. But I also waited tables for 10 years. I've been around food and restaurants my whole life. My parents met and started dating in a restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, Bernie's Delicatessen, which is closed shortly after I was born, and it was down the street from the Lincoln Dells, kind of an old school Jewish deli.
Sure,
that if you weren't around then, you don't know it.
I wasn't around then. I'll take your word for it, though. More recent to the Twin Cities than that.
Yeah.
What is it about sort of this community space? Because obviously with Appetite for Change is very community-centric also. Breaking Bread Cafe, that was open, was also sort of very all about bringing the community together in North Minneapolis. What is it about the work that you've done here and there and that's sort of the commonality, right? Is the having a space like this to bring the community together.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, like I said, I was looking for a new hands-on creative art and remembered I had taken pottery in high school. Miss Watson, amazing pottery teacher. And I wasn't necessarily any good at it, but I remember really enjoying it. And actually, Jen, my business partner, is my acupuncturist, and I was like, I need to find a new art form. I'm thinking about taking a pottery class. And she was like, this was 6 years ago, Michelle, I teach pottery at the St. Louis Park Community Ed program. I was like, no, I didn't know that. And so I just signed up for her class, and I joined a pottery studio during COVID so that I could go on my own time. Mm-hmm. But what I felt like was missing in the Twin Cities was like a community studio, a pottery studio where it's really open and welcoming for all different ages and all different types of people who, just want to try it out once, but they, don't have anyone to do it with. So come to Clay Time, come check us out just one time. Or somebody who wants to only do clay once a week and they, don't want to go and look for a professional studio or anything like that. We have flexible memberships for that. And it is about creating a space where people can come together. I think there's a lot of places where artists are just heads down, they've got their earbuds in, or you're just like, I'm here to do my work, but not necessarily building connections or relationships, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, the space, given the openness of it, both the classroom space is nice, and then next to that is the members space where those who are members can work, does have that kind of openness. It feels very conducive to, if not collaborative work, because everybody has their own vision for their own stuff, but at least a space where you're in community together and not so locked into your own thing.
Yeah, we wanted a space where, first of all, Jen had her studio in her basement, and she was teaching classes, like I said, at Community Ed, and found so much more inspiration when she was around other people and creating in a community atmosphere. And so the idea of and she did dismantle her basement studio. I mean, a lot of artists do have their studios in a basement mm-hmm. or garage or warehouse. Even a lot of community studios where there's classes or memberships might be, in a less inspirationally visual, aesthetically pleasing space, because I think artists obviously don't have a lot of extra income lying around, and also they're making the beautiful stuff, so maybe they don't feel like they deserve to be in a beautiful space. But when you come in here and it's like floor to ceiling or waist to ceiling windows, it's full of light, we're on the second floor. People have said it feels like a pottery studio in a tree house, and it's just so inspirational, and I forget how much more creative I can and want to be, and when I'm in a beautiful space.
I mean, and as somebody who creates content also, like, I definitely feel that in a space that is open and well lit, and there's and maybe it's me coming out of a newsroom, mm-hmm. right, where there's always a ton going on, that I don't mind the background noise. And yes, I can put my AirPods in and sort of tune out and listen to what I need to and get work done, but also just the vibe of the hustle and the bustle and people moving around and doing their thing and having these meetings and side conversations. Like, there's something invigorating about that.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful energy. It's like electric. And we want to create a space where, we want someone who is a new potter, beginning potter, and they've taken classes, but they don't need a class, and they want to have the flexibility. They can come in whenever they want. But we want them to feel like they could turn to their neighbor and they wouldn't be intruding by saying, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. Do you have any ideas? And we actually have this cool thing that I think is a real differentiator for us. It's at Forma, we call it Potter's Hours, and it's kind of like office hours. So Jen, my partner, who is my business partner, who is the teacher, and we have Ralph right now and a couple of other instructors too, where they host Potter's Hours. They're here, Jen's here every Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. So members who want that time with an instructor, but they don't want to be bogged down with the same class time every week, can come in, they can ideate a project, they can get a demo, they can ask questions like, why did my piece do this in the kiln. They can say, I'm really having a hard time with this. Do you have any ideas, other suggestions? So it's very cool to see people learning together, even though they may not know each other.
And it's one of those kinds of art forms that, like, when done well, is really incredible. And I saw some of Jen's pieces, in one of the shelves here, and just a coffee mug, which is just such a sort of simple everyday thing, it's gorgeous. It's well done. It's well glazed. It's got, good heft to it, which I kind of like in a mug. Like, it should feel like something in your hand. And, like, it looks so hard for somebody like me who's never, short of making a menorah in sixth grade, never done anything like this. So I think it's cool that you have this opportunity for people who want to do more with it to be able to learn.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can get Jen's mugs at Black Walnut Bakery, which is quite amazing. But I feel like the functionality of pottery, that it's not, pottery and ceramics, there's so much beautiful sculpture and things that are just beautiful to look at that don't have functionality. But I think what draws a lot of hobby potters to the work is that they can make vessels, they can make bowls and pots and mugs and give them as gifts, and then maybe they start selling their work at a maker's market, or they make a side hustle out of it. And it's sort of like, I've not been back at this as an adult for more than 5 years, and I only do it once a week. Maybe at the height of my time I was doing it twice a week, but you saw some of my pieces, and they're not professional by any stretch, but they're nice, and if I gave it to you as a gift, you would love it and use it, and it would
absolutely love it and use it. Are you kidding? Look, again, like any other art form, it's sort of subjective.
Totally.
I think it looks great, and you're like, meh, but that's okay, because that's how people see art. So you've mentioned memberships. How do the memberships work, and what was sort of the inspiration behind that particular model? Is that something that's pretty common in this kind of place?
Yeah, it's pretty common, although everyone is doing it differently, and we're learning a lot about how different studios are doing it differently around the country, actually, because we're involved in a side project, partner project, in building an online portal with software that we are using and will be using to manage different parts of our studio, and we really think that might be a great solution for other studios. So we've been researching a lot of different studios and how they operate, and memberships are very common, but there's 24 different ways that studios are doing it. Ours is flexible. There's a kiosk you check in and out with. It's just one tap of a button. You have a code that you get in and out 24/7 to the space, so you can use it flexibly whenever you want. And then there's different levels. Dabbler is 10 hours a month. The hobbyist, which I'm kind of in between a dabbler and a hobbyist. Hobbyist is 24 hours a month, and that's a good month if I can get here 24 hours. But and then we have the maker, which is unlimited use, and we also have the closer for folks who have a home studio or they make art somewhere else, but they want to glaze their work here and fire their work here. They can do that and use all of our tools. They just don't have a shelf, and they're not using the wheels or using the equipment.
Got it. The glazes, and this is why people need to just come in for clay time sometime. The glazes that Jen created. These are
Jen and Ralph
created the 15 different glaze options
with 225 different combinations.
Because that's how math works.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just the wall of glazes and the combinations is incredible. And
Thank you.
The work and the care that clearly went into it, and the thought of is really, it's evident when you walk through the space. And are the touches like that, like the different glazes and the options, is that something that was that something you had thought? I would imagine Jen is sort of the more professional, the teacher of
yeah,
it.
no, Jen is the
her.
potter, and Ralph has been integral to our operation and is the glaze chemist. So yeah, Ralph came in and actually showed us how to make glazes, and when I say us, I really mean Jen. And most places have a glaze tile wall. They're called test tiles, and you make test tiles to show yourself or others like what is this glaze combination or this glaze going to do. And on different clay bodies, we have 6 different clay bodies here, and so we have test tiles on the buckets themselves that show you this color on each of these types of clays. But like there's 15 glazes with 15, with all the different combos, and sometimes you'll just see like test tiles on a wall, and that's fine, but Ralph and Jen really wanted to create something that was just beautiful to look at. And I mean, people come in and they look at the glaze tile wall, the test tile wall, and they're like, oh my gosh, that is a piece of art. Because it is. They hand carved these beautiful designs because glaze shows up differently on flat surfaces versus like textured surfaces. So it's even intentional to show you this, how it's going to look.
It's really cool. It's just, again, such a fun space. How long has it been open for?
Forma opened at the end of June,
okay.
Which we've learned is not the ideal time because Minnesotans who do pottery are not necessarily, the height of the season is not necessarily the 3 months out of the year that we can be outside. So, okay, that's an exaggeration for all my winter lovers out there.
No, but for a lot of people,
6 months.
Yeah, right.
But so yeah, it's we've got 16 members. We have the capacity for a lot of members, so we welcome more members. And then we've got our 8-week classes, which are filling up, but there's a few spots in a few different classes this fall. And then we've started with people plan their kids' summers, speaking from experience, by like, if you're not already everything locked in on the spreadsheet by April, you're like
scrambling.
You're screwed. And most people have it, a lot of people have their act together, have it done in like February or March. And we of course posted our kids' classes in June. So, but we did have some kiddos come, and it's really fun to see the little ones. They do hand building, but if they're 11 to 14, we also have been doing wheel, and we've got classes for kids on the weekends this fall, and we're going to be adding a clay time for adults and kids to come together because we have been having a lot of requests for people who want to come with their kid to do clay.
That's fun. Yeah. I mean both of my kids did some pottery work in middle school, and I know both really enjoyed it.
I mean, so many schools have gotten rid of arts programs, and of the arts programs that are the first to go, unless you have like a champion, and like at the St. Louis Park High School, a Mr. A who has just like, I don't even know him, but he's like a legend and has built that program. That's who taught Jen, and who Jen took over the community ed program from him 14 years ago. Yeah. And it's like, pottery studios take up a lot of space. You've got equipment, you've got clay going down the drains. It is the easiest, most expensive, largest cost benefit thing to just cut.
Yeah, for sure.
Drawing, painting, those things take up a lot less resources.
Oh, for sure. Less resources, less space, everything.
Yeah.
It's an easier program to...
And even some art schools. I heard we have that's the other thing. Kids are welcome here, and we've had someone who's looking at coming for membership who goes to an art school, but they don't have an ceramics program. So it's like, even when you're at an art school and you want to do pottery, it's not a given that they have a program there. There are a lot of dedicated middle school and high school ceramics teachers out there that have been, they've given their lives to making sure these programs are still around. I mean, the Edina Art Center pottery program closed during COVID. I mean, it's still listed on a lot of websites as open, but I don't know if it's coming back. And like, that's an institution. There are thousands of people in this community that either took clay class at Edina Art Center, or they, studied there, or, had a membership, not a membership, but like they came in there for open studio, and it's just gone. So
that's a shame, obviously, but it's, certainly.
So hence there's a need.
There's a need, and you've provided the opportunity in the space, and people can come check it out, and dabble or, throw themselves all in.
Yeah.
Plenty of ways to get involved here.
Yeah, come for clay time. It's just a one-time experience. You can see if you like it. If you want to commit to an 8-week class, that can be a big ask for people. If it's something that they end up hating,
Right. Right. That's a long time, and I'm sure not inexpensive if you end up really despising it.
No, and it's frustrating. I think I'm a perfectionist and have used pottery to also be it's very centering. It's very, you can't be on your phone. You're with the piece of clay, you're throwing on the wheel, you're very present and mindful, and it's just been extremely helpful for my mental well-being. And we want that to be accessible to people. So for those of us who are perfectionists, you come for the first time and you can't center it, and it's really hard, and your piece is ugly, and then it flops around, and you're like, why is this so hard? It should be way easier. And it's getting over that hurdle can sometimes be tough for folks.
Sure.
But then it is so rewarding once you see how much you've come from the first week in an 8-week class to the last. And so I encourage those really, really strong perfectionists to come to clay time and make sure it's a feeling that they can handle.
Absolutely. I mean, and it does give it that sense of accessibility where you can very much try before you buy.
That's right. Yeah.
In a way, in a matter of speaking.
Yeah. It's not free, but it's not as much of a financial commitment or a time commitment.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's 8 weeks, so
Right.
but it's a wonderful experience.
So we did mention appetite for change.
Yes.
Don't want to let you go without sort of getting an update on that.
Of course.
You are still involved.
Yes.
Sort of halftime there, halftime here. Or
Yes.
I would say half. Not necessarily half and half, but I'm sure
Two halves do not always equal just one whole.
No, they equals far more than that, I'm sure. But you are still involved there. What's new? What's happening with what's going on with that really important community organization also?
Yeah, I mean, I will always be involved whether I'm employed there or not, but I still am employed there. But I am a co-founder and will be integrally involved in whatever way I can for as long as I can. We are sad to be closing Breaking Bread on August 25th. The brick and mortar space will no longer be open, but we're really, really excited about launching the food truck. It's been a vision and a goal for a long time to have one, but we kind of started with the brick and mortar first, which is a longer story of how we ended up in that space. But it's going to be a new way for us to serve community, and lots of folks were not able to come to Breaking Bread. We also had limited hours when we reopened. Now we're going to be able to take the food truck to a brewery or a private event, do catering, and make money on the truck to be able to turn around and offer pay what you can, free meals, sliding scale fee meals in the community, and serving North Minneapolis really delicious, made from scratch food in a way that almost makes it even more accessible from a food access perspective. Unfortunately, of course, we're losing this beautiful community gathering space.
Yeah.
But we are, we know that we will have a forever home someday in the future.
Yeah.
And Breaking Bread brick and mortar will be back and better than ever.
And you know what, though, there's in a lot of ways, though, and I think the examples you mentioned of how it can sort of reinvest and give back into the community, it makes a lot of sense, the food truck, maybe right now, that you can get out to more places in the community and get to people who either weren't ever able to get to the space in North Minneapolis, which is a very cool community gathering space, or had never heard of Breaking Bread before, and appetite for change and the mission for it. And I think once people hear the mission, they'll be like, oh, this is so cool. How long has this been around? And you'll be able to say,
almost 12 years.
Right. So it's been around for a long time, and it's been such an integral part of the North Minneapolis community, and it's good that the rest of Minneapolis and even the Greater Twin Cities area, if that's where the food truck can go anywhere.
That's right.
So there's that opportunity.
And AFC is still hard at work fulfilling our mission of using food as a tool to build health, wealth, and social change. We have our urban farms. We have a deep winter greenhouse. We have our farmers market, a youth employment program, cooking workshops, meal boxes. We do a lot. And so while this is, ending a chapter and there's some sadness there, it's opening up a new door to the future. And we are so excited for Kenya McKnight Ahad and the Zara building and the incredible plans that she has for redeveloping that space and making it, really, really amazing for the north side.
Well, it's very exciting, and I'm definitely excited to see what comes next with the food truck next once it's up and running soon.
Coming to a corner near you.
Looking forward to it. Last couple questions, Michelle, and we will let you get back to the wheel to throw some more clay.
Oh, yes.
First, what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Oh, this year, let's see. I don't know that I have I think I do. I think it's Passover.
Okay.
I love Passover. I love the storytelling and the food. It's so centered around the food and just the ritual and the coming together. I love it.
And I love the fact that you started saying this year, like you could change. Which, listen, it could change all the time if you wanted to.
I mean, sometimes it's based on the food and the menu, and so I'm thinking about Rosh Hashanah's coming up and all the things I'm excited to eat, and
yes.
Maybe Rosh Hashanah's my favorite, but I think I have to come back to Passover. Yeah.
Excellent. And speaking of food, what is your favorite Jewish food?
Oh my gosh, that is really hard. Toss up between matzo ball soup and brisket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any recipe in particular for either of those? Is it an old family secret that been passed down, or?
I can't say that, but I will say that Michelle Bernstein's short ribs in Miami inspired a new brisket recipe that I've been perfecting over the years.
Really?
That I really like.
Oh.
It's got some serrano chilies, some citrus, herbs, tomatoes, red wine, seared and braised and all the good things. Onions, lots of onions.
So hungry now. that absolutely did it.
And my kids love my mom, Bubby's matzo ball soup more than anything in the world. So
listen, Bubby's matzo ball soup is hard to beat.
It's really, really
it's pretty hard.
The best.
Michelle Horovitz of so many things, but right now a Forma clay and appetite for change. Thank you so much for having me in and showing me this space. It is absolutely gorgeous, and best of luck to you as it continues to grow.
Thank you, Lonnie. It's so great to talk to TC Jew Folk.
The Who the Folk podcast is a part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network and a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.